How are we doing today? This is a pretty good episode of the Leadership Corner because today I have Raaheela Ahmed. Um, she's outgoing with the Prince George's County Public Schools Board of Education, and she's putting together a campaign to run for the Maryland State Senate. So welcome, Raaheela. How are you doing?
Thank you, Frank. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Raaheela.
Sure, Frank. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to chat with you today. As you mentioned, my name is Raaheela. I am the outgoing Board of Education member on the Prince George's County Board of Ed. But before I ever held a leadership role, I do have to say, first and foremost, I am the daughter of immigrants. So my father is an immigrant from India and my mother is an immigrant from Pakistan. And it's really because of them that I decided to pursue public service in the first place. My first experience with engagement and being in the community was when I was 5 years old, working on my father's campaign. My father is an interesting man. He moved here about the same age that I'm at now. And within 10 years of him moving to the US, decided that he wanted to run for office. So his first run was when I was 5 years old, and I was out there at parades holding little vote for my dad signs. And he lost that race and he ran again 4 years later. And at that time, I was also involved and engaged. We were hopeful. And so I would have little assembly lines with my cousins where we would be folding, stuffing, sealing envelopes. And so that was, I leveled up a little bit in terms of my involvement. He lost that race, and then he ran again when I was 13. And that's when I started going door to door and really getting a feel for community and what does it mean to be a member of community? What does it mean to stand up for values? What does it mean to talk about somebody that you care about and try and convince folks that this person is worth going out to vote for? And so that was a very key and crucial experience. It was also a very pivotal moment for me, being a young person, experiencing at the doors from people some very positive things, some very great encouragement, but also some really scary things, some xenophobia, some Islamophobia, some racism, some misogyny, all of that, ageism combined. And I was really exposed to really the best and the worst of what our society is. And so he lost that election again, ran again when I was 17. And by then I was essentially running his election day operations and being out at the polls, recruiting my friends to come volunteer, all of that, to the point where my dad looked at me when I was 18 and he told me, Raaheela, you should give this a shot. It's your time to run. You should give it a chance. And he kept telling me that I was qualified, that this was my passion, that the community needed me, and that he would support me. And he kept telling me those things over and over and over again until I said, okay, let's give it a go. So I ran for the first time to serve our community when I was 18 years old, against the establishment, and did a really strong grassroots game, as that's the only way I know how to serve, right? Going and meeting people and seeing what are the concerns of folks, and lost that election by 3%, ran again 4 years later and won. And so I've served on the Board of Education now here for 5 years. And I'm really sad to be leaving. Today is actually my very last day as a Board of Education member. I just turned in all of my equipment, coming back and doing this interview with you. And so I'm very excited for the potential as me running for Senate. Very excited by that opportunity to be able to continue to serve our community and to really be a fighter up there in Annapolis. I think there's been so many different concerns and issues that folks have brought to me over the years around education, around democracy, around social justice, racial justice, that I'm really excited to be fighting for on a different level of office. And I really hope that folks resonate with my background, with what I have to say, and believe and trust that I will do what's best for our community. So this is kind of what's brought me to be in this place now. And I'm very, very excited to be moving forward and be chatting with here with you about it as well.
Thank you. It's a great introduction of yourself there. Um, you mentioned xenophobia. I'm a little ignorant in that term. I was familiar with a few other terms that you said. What is xenophobia?
Xenophobia is more of a fear or a concern around people that are not from your native country, of immigrants. And so not understanding the cultural context of situations, um, really kind of fearful of what it means to have different ethnicities in the space, and not understanding what all that means. And it's really hard because we're a nation that's built on immigrants, right? Very many of us, I shouldn't say all of us, because there were several indigenous people populations here before any of us were here. But we're a nation of largely of immigrants, folks that have come from different places to settle here by choice or by force. Um, and so in that way, there is a learning curve for folks that everyone's coming here from different, or has come here at different times under different contexts, for the most part. And so xenophobia is really looking at the fear of immigrants, of culture, of ethnicity, of what all that means in the context of the country's present and future.
Okay. The other term you used, and this is just all for clarity, you said you used the term or the word establishment.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes when people hear someone say, "Hey, I'm against the establishment," they subconsciously or intentionally think about against the government, right? And as Americans and citizens, we kind of frown upon uh, someone that says something that even aligns to something of opposing the government. So what do you mean by establishment?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that clarifying question. I meant political establishment. And so in this area, in the state, in very many areas across the country, there are folks that are politically leading efforts, and are the kind of go-to elected officials that folks look to for support, that folks look to for leadership, that kind of run the politics of a certain area. So when I say I ran against the establishment, I ran against the political establishment of folks that have been in office, that have served, and have controlled, for lack of a better word, the politics of that area in that region. And so a lot of times you'll find this where folks try and uh, be on their best behavior to get the support of certain folks that they believe are running the show. And so I was not one of those people. I was one of those folks that said, I'm going to go to the people because the people are going to elect me. The people I'm trying to run to represent people, not to represent or to cozy up with elected officials or politicians that are invested in something else, right? And so that's what I mean by that. And it's very hard because a lot of these systems were not built for people like you or me, folks that are working on a regular basis, folks that come from backgrounds that are atypical, that at one point did not have the ability to vote in this country. And so the systems that we have in place were really not built for all of the things that people are now. And I'm really excited to be able to try and represent and be a voice to advocate for some changes in the system. So we don't have a political establishment anymore, right? So we can really live out the values that I believe this country was intending to build upon when it comes to democracy, right? Where anyone has the ability to stand up and say, I want to represent and I want to serve and I want to do what's right by people. But that can only happen when we're disrupting systems. disrupting political establishments. And so that's the context behind that.
Okay, well put. So looking at some of your platform, you believe in universal health care, better immigration policies, educational equities, affordable housing, corporate accountability, criminal justice, and immigration reforms, right? So my first question, Amazon. I just kind of, you heard the speculations about Amazon and the health industry, and then I saw it a couple of days ago where now you can have physicians go on Amazon and get an appointment with a physician for physical evaluations, etc. What do you think about Amazon entering into the health industry?
I mean, the issue that I have is that Amazon is a big business. It's a big corporation that doesn't always do right by its people. And so when any company gets that big, I have pause. Just an example, there were so many folks, so many cities that were fighting, cities and states that were fighting to have Amazon, the second Amazon, in their location, and offering a lot of different things, whatever, tax breaks, financial incentives, etc., for a company that is not always doing right by its people. And so for me, the issue is more of, we are building a system that supports corporations over people, and that is really problematic to me. Innovation in this way, what Amazon is doing with healthcare, is a part of capitalism and the structures that we currently have. But it's just really hard to watch and see this type of growth happen, because in my head, it's happening on the backs of workers that are making minimum wage, right? Or slightly above minimum wage, or maybe making a little bit more, but their working conditions aren't the best. And so those are the things that are going on in the back of my mind.
Okay. You left the Bowie Education Committee, right? Bowie, Maryland Education Committee. What did you feel like there were some things that you didn't complete when you left, or did you feel like, hey, it was just time to leave? Was there any unfinished business?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there were bits and pieces of unfinished business when I came to me leaving the Prince George's County Board of Education. The biggest one is that I've been working with community organizers. We've actually developed an organization, an informal group, an informal task force looking at school boundaries in our area. We've been working on it for 2 years. And because of the state law that says I must resign before I run for any other office, I had to leave. And the votes on the boundaries that we have been fighting to ensure has the best interest of our community at heart, those decisions aren't going to be made until after I leave, and it'll happen in the next couple of months. And so 2 years worth of efforts going to try and be very determined, very thoughtful about solutions for our community. I'm passing the torch to another person who I'm very excited to be able to lead that task force. But the issue is I'm not going to be there at the table to make those cases and to advocate for folks. And I've tried to do as much as I can before leaving, but it's just not the same to be on the dais fighting during the vote, before the vote, listening to the hearings, trying to make the case for what's right for community. So I think that's the biggest unfinished business that I have left. And it hurts my heart, but at the same time, I feel like if you feel like you're indispensable to an organization, you haven't done something right. For me, it's about leaving a legacy of leadership and leaving very many support structures in place for the folks that are going to continue the fight. And so me, helping to bring on somebody else to lead the task force also informing and trying to bring my colleagues, some of my colleagues, up to speed about all the issues that are facing our community. Those are the types of things I'm talking about. And I'm also really excited because a lot of the students that I have interacted with while being on the school board are now participating and helping on my campaign and are considering running for office themselves. And so this is what I'm talking about in terms of leadership and legacy. And I'm really excited by that. It's just very hard to let go. But I think if you don't let go, then sometimes you end up being in spaces for years and years and decades, as we see some of our federal representatives being there for decades. And I just don't know that that's the right way to go. I think it's always about making sure that you're doing as best as you can to leave something else for someone else to pick up and run with. And so I'm proud of all I've done so far, and I'm excited for the folks to pick up and run in the future.
And leadership, right?
Mhm.
There's the old thought that, are leaders born or are leaders made, right? You talked about doing the rounds with your dad, doing his campaigns, and you learned a whole lot along that process. But did you feel, or do you feel that I was born to do this? Like there's something within you that says, I'm a leader. This comes naturally to me. Or did you feel that roaming around with your dad and watching him, you just kind of learned how to be a leader?
Yeah, I definitely, it's funny that you mentioned this, Frank, because my name, Raaheela, it means very many different things. So it can mean Exodus, but my great grandfather used to tell me that Raaheela means one who leads. And so I don't know if it's true or not, but it might be part of my namesake, which I thought was very interesting as I was growing up, and definitely probably had some type of an impact on me. But I was always a very quiet, introverted type of person. It took a lot for me to kind of break out of my shell. Going canvassing was one of the hardest things I have ever had to do, especially at such a young age. It was just a battle every time of like, I had to mentally prepare myself. And so I really feel that my leadership has been built over time, and I'm continuing to grow and learn from that. I also feel like everybody has the capacity to be a leader in their own way. Being a big L leader, being a person that's in positional power, in other words, is one thing, and it's important to have the proper people in those positional leadership positions. But I think it's even more important to have little L leaders throughout the community, folks that you can turn to and say, oh, hey, this person's got my back. They're going to try and advocate for this, right? Folks that you can turn to look at and say, oh yeah, this person organized so-and-so drive and is trying to work to do this. Or even as simple as, yes, this person is a person that has helped my child read today, right? Those are the types of little L leadership, service-based leadership that I think is so crucial to making a society function and work in all the right ways. And I'd much rather be a little L leader than a big L leader that's not doing right. I'd much rather be a little L leader that's doing right by as many people as possible than a big L leader that's not doing the right way. So many folks think of it and see, okay, I want to attain to this position. I want to attain to this position without thinking, okay, why, right? Am I trying to attain this position to maintain some type of status, control, and power? Or am I trying to attain this position because that means that I can just do more little L leadership up here for more people? And for me, it's the latter.
Yeah, agreed. I'm big on when we think leadership, a lot of people think big with leadership. And my thought process is that leadership is big no matter what situation you're
Mhm.
in, right? It's no bigger than the shift supervisor at a restaurant or at a retail space, and it's no bigger than the CEO of a company, right? Because you are the leader in whatever you're doing
Mhm.
at that moment. So a lot of people add the title to leadership, and I don't think you need to add a title to leadership. You have that position, it's a position, right? But true leadership is how you develop that position and how you relate to the people that you're leading, either
Mhm.
in at work, home, or in the community. So we try to be diversified in our leadership thinking here at Future Coaching. Um, so great there. Now there are different types of leaders, right? There's a delegative leadership. You like to delegate out tasks to everyone. There's the autocratic leadership. My word is my word. Democratic leadership, where's the leadership of the people. And then there's the transactional and the transformational leadership. Now, your transactional is kind of objective, right? You motivate the group to get them to perform work, and then the transformational is more motivation, but it's goal oriented, right? And I know I've mentioned a whole lot to you at one time, but where do you fit in? Where do you think, what is your strength in leadership?
Yeah, I would definitely say of the ones that you listed, democratic leadership resonates with me, but I would self-describe myself as a servant leader. That is kind of that's how I identify a person that is at the feet of people, that is at the feet of trying to do best by people, and always keeping that at the forefront of my mind. I think the biggest thing for me, especially with kind of understanding servant-based leadership and trying to be there for people, the thing for me is that I would not be here in this position of leadership or seeking a position of leadership without the folks that have raised me in this area, right? It's the folks in this area that helped raise me. I went to school here, grew up in this community, have felt encouraged by so many folks in this community, then ran for office and felt so encouraged by folks in the community at that point in time with votes and support and yard signs and all this stuff. And then now being on the board for several years was also well supported in trying to move forward things for community. And so for me, the community has built me up, and I serve the community, and it's a cycle that way, right? And so for me, if I always keep the mindset that I'm at the service of people, that is the type of leader that I want to be, and the type of leadership I want to execute. So that would kind of be my self-declaration and my self identification.
Okay, now earlier we talked about one of the giant corporations, right? We talked about Amazon. But in your platform, you mentioned corporate responsibility. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, corporate accountability for me looks like closing tax loopholes for the ultra wealthy and for corporations, making sure that corporations pay their fair share. I think folks really forget that, businesses are not people, right? We need to really focus on what's right by people, and giving businesses tax breaks or incentives doesn't necessarily help people. It helps a bill. It helps an entity. And so that's really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about keeping folks accountable. It also means making sure that those entities understand that they're working for people. And so they should be contributing in whatever ways possible to the community and doing best by community as well. Whether that be, significant programs for workforce development, recruiting local workers, uh, subcontracting with minority businesses, small businesses, all of that stuff is very, very important to me.
Good points, good points. I remember just a scenario where my daughter was doing a fundraiser at school, and I was walking around and I was like, hey, we're going to raise the most money because I'm going to go to businesses and ask them, can you donate to my daughter's fundraiser? So We're walking around, we're stopping at the cleaners, at these different businesses, small businesses in the community, and no one was really open to it. Or they would say that, hey, you have to, reach out to my accountant or someone else. And I just found that pretty peculiar that there wasn't an open mindedness to, oh, okay, we can donate this much right away. But it was you had to go to someone else to get a decision about the fundraising. So yeah, corporate social responsibility. I think we do need a little bit more of that in the community, and community and businesses should give back because we support them in the community. So great point there. Now, you've been in some situations, right? We've all been in leadership situations where we've had personality conflicts. And I think through time, that's just what it is, right? You're going to have personality conflicts. The work still has to get done, right? So how do you as a leader handle conflicts, personality conflicts, or any kind of conflicts in trying to get the everyday tasks done?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really an internal battle, and the battle is don't take it personally. As soon as you take yourself out of the equation and you try and look at things from another person's point of view of what is the issue and trying to resolve the issue at its core, and you take yourself out of it, that has been very successful for me. I have had definitely experiences where my emotions have taken over. And I think it's been in response to feeling gaslit, in response to feeling undermined, in a significant way, like berated as well, or feeling a sense of abuse. And so I think those are the situations, the extreme situations of, continuous badgering, that I think has been difficult for me to navigate. But I think for me, I've definitely adopted some skills to be able to try and remove my personal feelings from a situation, and then try to be able to address the core issue at heart. That has been very successful for me. I think it's hard though, because you're not going to get along with everyone. You're not going to respect everyone at the same level. For me, respect is huge, right? I want to be able to, even if I don't, we don't get along, I want to respect you for something that you brought forward, a policy, an idea, respect you for the way that you communicate to folks. There needs to be some level of respect. And I think if you look for that in somebody else, then you might be able to work with them a little bit better, right? Even if you don't understand why or where they're coming from when it comes to a particular reaction that they might have, or a particular position that they might take. As long as you can find the one or two things that you can respect about them, then you can kind of go into a situation having some type of decorum for that person. And so those are the two tricks that I try to incorporate of me removing myself, my personal feelings from a situation to identify the core issue, and then as well as trying to do my best to identify something that I can respect about a person, to walk myself into that space with a sense of decorum.
Yeah, I would say agree to disagree. And sometimes that may not be good enough. I would say more of understanding why they disagree. And if you still disagree, then you disagree, but you respect why they disagreed with you.
Yeah.
So going into our last question right here. We talked about leadership as far as your platform status, the immigration laws, the corporate responsibilities, federal reform, prison reform, and you also do the college vote project, and you'll correct me in your answer here. I think it's the college vote project. where you're encouraging voting amongst young citizens as well. Where do you see, right, going from the Board of Education, now you're going and campaigning for the state Senate? Where do you see your leadership at? What is the vision for your leadership? What are you trying to accomplish?
I really want to see a better district, a better community, and a better state for us all, in the sense of, if I had to encapsulate it in one image, my image would be a person, any person in our community coming home from work, feeling like I did a good day's work. I feel well paid. I feel well respected. I feel like my children are going to be okay, that they're being educated. I'm not worried about my rent, about paying my rent. I'm not worried about paying my health care. I'm just going to come home, have a nice meal, which I'm going to get easily because I'm not living in a food desert. And I can come and sit, eat comfortably, understand that I have a good quality of life and I'm good. For me, that is the image that I see of any person in my district, and every person in my district coming to a home and feeling all of these feelings of contentment, of safety, when it comes to all of these different elements. That's my vision. If we can get everybody to a place of coming home and having those feelings, that would be success for me. And I get it. This might not be something that, one person, one me cannot accomplish all of these things, but that's the vision that I have for our future. 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, everyone should have these feelings coming home. And I'm going to strive to be able to do as much as possible to ensure that we get to that place.
Well, thank you, Raaheela. Hey, it's been great having you on the show today, and it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed your answers, and it's going to be great to see you continue to blossom and grow, and watch your campaign for the Maryland State Senate.
Thanks so much, Frank. It was really nice being here with you.
Thank you. Hey, I thank everyone for watching this episode of the Leadership Corner, and I ask that everyone subscribe to the channel. Thank you once again.